Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. On today's show, Henry Cavill's secret Black Adam shoot as Superman. And predictably, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom and Shazam Fury of the Gods have been delayed. There should be no shocks or surprises about that. And we talk about the cast and crew of Batgirl being allowed to view the Batgirl movie as some kind of mourning funeral process. I am not kidding. So let's get on with today's show. So yes, welcome to Thursday's show. A very, very warm welcome from me and everyone here at Movies TV Mad, because it isn't just me. So thank you to everyone who supports this channel. I am so grateful. So let's go back to San Diego Comic-Con, where there was rumors Henry Cavill would be part of a DC panel to explain his future in the DC Extended Universe. He didn't arrive. People were devastated. I wasn't surprised. I would have loved it to be a fact, but clearly something was going on. Why was Cavill mentioned by Deadline in the first place? Well, it was quickly announced that Henry Cavill couldn't continue shooting on The Witcher Season 3, I think it's Season 3, because he had caught COVID. It is now my understanding, and take this with a pinch of salt please, because there are multiple rumours coming out, that Henry Cavill has just finished shooting a secret sequence on Black Adam as Superman. So what I'm being told is, and again, don't kill the messenger, might not be true, but I'm being told that Henry Cavill never had COVID, and that was just merely a cover for him shooting a secret sequence as Superman on Black Adam. How exciting would this be if this is true? At this moment, I can't validate or verify this rumor. Do I think it's true? Yes, I do. There's been multiple rumors about Henry Cavill being involved with Black Adam for years. Do you remember when he sat round the table with The Rock many years ago when the DCEU was being run by Zack Snyder? The fans have wanted a fight between Henry's Superman and The Rock's Black Adam for many, many years. Since the inception of the DCEU, and we heard that Dwayne would be playing Black Adam, Tef Adam. So if he's in this movie, it will be very, very exciting. Now, in the movie that I saw, the test screening I saw, I can now clarify, there's no Superman in that sequence. It doesn't mean maybe he was supposed to be in it, I don't know. But he wasn't in it. But yes, that's the rumor, that he never had COVID. The whole Comic-Con thing was just a distraction so scoopers didn't sniff that he was secretly shooting a Superman sequence in Black Adam. And the rumor and what my sources are telling me, believe it or not, take it with a pinch of salt, yes, he never had COVID. That was an excuse to explain away why he wasn't shooting on The Witcher Season 3, and in fact, allegedly, he was shooting a secret sequence on Black Adam. And by God, every DCEU Snyderverse and DC fan and Superman fan like myself, and many of you out there, really do hope it's true, because it would be amazing for this to happen, and it would bump up the box office and the excitement for this movie, because the public out there don't really know what they're going to get with this movie. I know what you're going to get, or from the test screening, which could be, could be dramatically different, because even if they don't go out and reshoot a movie, in some elements, the editing can change, and editing changes a movie. Different music beats change a movie. So as I always say, a test screening isn't a treat, isn't a preview. It's not a movie night. You go there because they want to know if they're doing anything wrong and what changes they need to make. You're there to be a helpful arm to the people who have made the movie and who are making the movie. That's what a test screening is. So yes, I believe that Henry Cavill, in fact, did go out during this whole he can't shoot on The Witcher season 3 and he had COVID, blah, blah, blah. But in fact, I do believe that he was shooting a secret sequence or sequences for the Black Adam movie. Now, of course, he's been absent. When was San Diego Comic-Con? July? Was it over a month ago? I think it was over a month ago. So he could have been out there for 5 weeks. Who knows? Yeah. So although I can't confirm or validate or verify this rumor, I believe it to be true. I believe you will see Henry Cavill's Superman in Black Adam. And I also believe you will see him in Shazam. And next, we talk about the dramatic announcement that the dramatic announcement that Shazam Fury of the Gods and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom have been delayed. A few weeks ago, David Zaslav and Warner Brothers Discovery had a financial call, which means the CEO has to answer lots of questions from investors and shareholders and board members. And they asked him about the Flash movie and the other DC upcoming movies. He responded by saying, "They're great, but we can make them better." Do you remember what I said to you after he said that? That it's clear that he doesn't think they're great and they need extensive reshoots. I warned you movies would be moved about. Surprise, surprise, no shit Sherlock. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom has been moved from March next year, I think it was the 23rd of March or whatever, to December 25th, 2023. Now that's a dramatic delay. And of course, we'll get into the details from Boris Kitt from The Hollywood Reporter very shortly, but they are using the VFX excuse yet again, and I don't fucking believe them. That could be an element of it, of course, because James Wan is a perfectionist, but there's more going on about that. So after we get the details, we'll really get into it. We mustn't forget Shazam Fury of the Gods, which was stupidly going to release 5 days after the Avatar sequel, Avatar: Way of the Water. So that was going to be a disaster. Originally, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom was going to go out on the same date as the Avatar sequel. Again, that was never going to happen. As I said earlier this year, when they changed the dates of the Flash movie, Shazam Fury of the Gods, and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, and even Black Adam, I said that all these dates mostly were placeholders. It looks like the Black Adam date isn't a placeholder, but this is DC, this is WB, and whether it's David Zaslav or someone else, you can't trust these fucking people. But I would assume that Black Adam goes out on, I think, is it October the 25th? Or whenever it is. It's been released right now in October of this year. We must assume they're going to stick to this date. So, after Zaslav said we can make these movies better, it was obvious that they were going to move these movies. Now, surprisingly, The Flash has stayed where it is, and there's no announcement about The Flash movie. This doesn't mean The Flash movie is safe, although Ezra Miller's recent apology and statement is a signifier that it's happening, and that's why they made him apologize and make a public statement and own up to his wrongdoing. Not that that makes everything all right, but at least publicly it's some kind of admittance of wrongdoing. I believe two things: that the Flash movie isn't necessarily safe, and I don't believe it's going to stay in its release date of June of next year. I believe we're going to hear some big announcements about the Flash movie sooner rather than later, but they don't want to pepper you with all the information because the Flash news is going to be huge. So first, they're just going to tell you about the delays of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom and Shazam Fury of the Gods. And of course, what they do is they try and prep you with positive news. So earlier that day, Jason Momoa was talking about shooting some scenes on Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom with his good friend Ben Affleck, who returns as Bruce Wayne and the Batman, or Batfleck, however you like to name him. And he was saying he's a good friend, we really get on. Of course, this was just prepping us for the bad news that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom would be delayed for several months, so let's get the details. This is from The Hollywood Reporter by Boris Kitt. and Pamela McClintock. Aquaman Shazam sequels pushed back release dates. The delays were part of a number of changes made to Warner Bros. Release calendar amid new ownership. The sequels to Aquaman and Shazam are changing their release dates in another major reshuffling at Warner Bros. The James Wan directed Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom has been pushed back more than 8 months from March the 17th, 2023 to December the 25th, 2023. The studio announced Wednesday. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom will see the return of Jason Momoa as the titular superhero, as well as Patrick Wilson as Orm, Marius, and Yahya Abdul-Mateen, the second Black Manta. It was recently revealed that Ben Affleck's Batman will return for Aquaman 2. The first Aquaman was a major earner for Warner Bros. DC, grossing more than $1 billion at the global box office. Also moving is Shazam's sequel, Fury of the Gods, which was meant to come out in December of this year. It has landed on Aquaman 2's old date, March the 17th, 2023. The Hollywood Reporter first reported earlier this month that the two movies were likely to move, including Aquaman moving to Christmas, as new owner Warner Bros. Discovery looks to spread out the marketing and distribution costs associated with releasing a studio tentpole. When asked at the time about the pending release date changes, a spokesperson for Warner Bros. Declined to comment. Now, Boris Kitt, this journalist, one of the most reliable journalists in entertainment and in Hollywood, claims they can't afford to release all the movies they were going to release this year, so they're spreading the dates. Listen, I don't think this has much to do with the $3 billion that Zaslav is trying to get back in cut downs. I believe in financial elements. If you release Shazam Fury of the Gods 5 days after Avatar Way of the Water, then it is a financial calamity, isn't it? You can't do it. It's a justifiable situation. What's interesting is the other, kind of date changes for Shazam Fury of the Gods came from Toby Emmerich. And, this is the first time that Zaslav and Warner Bros. Discovery have changed the dates. I believe the dates have been changed to alter these movies dramatically. Shazam released in 2019 was a modest hit by superhero standards with $365.9 million, but was well liked and praised for bringing a youthful energy to the genre. It told the story of a foster kid named Billy Batson, Asher Angel, who transformed into the hero Shazam. Levi, the sequel, adds franchise newcomers Lucy Liu, Helen Mirren, and Rachel Zegler, with the movie having had a massive debut last month at San Diego Comic-Con, where the film's trailer premiered. You see, I think it's all very, very bad when you take a movie to a convention or a panel, especially San Diego, and you say, we're releasing this film on this date, here's the trailer. Oh, like a month or two later, guess what? You're not seeing this film next year. It's bad because audiences get really frustrated. I'm frustrated, but I understand that this has to be done. The decisions that Zaslav is making may seem stupid and brutal, but I promise you, ultimately, this is for the health of Warner Bros. Discovery, and in terms of what we want and what we care about, DC live action. These are good, intelligent decisions, even though they seem like they're just cost cutters and stupid and desperate decisions right now. The release date changes come amid turnout for other DC properties, most notably Batgirl. The once HBO Max bound movie was shelved and will not be released on any platform, despite being completely finished and having a $90 million price tag. It's not at... Well, this is interesting because the directors have now said, I think we covered this on one of my videos yesterday, because they spoke to a French journalist and it was translated that they tried to save the movie and it's all been deleted, because Warner Brothers were burnt by Zack Snyder going into the studio, taking his movie, using their equipment. They're not going to do that again, especially with this calamity of a movie. And so this movie isn't actually completed. In fact, the director said if this movie ever does get released, it still needs a hell of a lot of work. The unusual move comes after a change in leadership at Warner's, with newly installed Warner Bros. Discovery CEO David Zaslav prioritizing cost-cutting measures, and refocusing Warner's on creating theatrical films rather than projects for streaming. Again, moving away from streaming movies and focusing on cinematic movies, on deciding that everything doesn't have a 45-day window, and we're going back to the good old days. If a movie does really well, it stays there. And it stays there until people stop watching it. And if a movie is solid or mediocre with its audiences, it basically honours the 45-day window. I think this is a good idea. Warner's announced a slew of other changes and additions to its upcoming theatrical release calendar, including taking Salem's Lot off its April 21st, 2023 date. No new date was announced. This could mean, maybe we won't see that, but who cares anyway. Other changes include dating New Line's House Party Redux for the 9th, 2022, Evil Dead Rise for April 21st. Basically, we don't really care about any of that because all we care about is DC, so we're going to get into that discussion. It's one thing to delay movies and bring movies forward once. It's one thing to move release dates back and forth during a pandemic, but we're not in the pandemic era anymore. And I know the media like to tell you and governments that we're still in a pandemic era. As far as I'm concerned, in terms of entertainment, we are not in a pandemic era. So when a studio, no matter that it's different leaderships doing it, keep on moving forward and back, release dates, it's really bad. And as I've mentioned on this channel before, all audiences are not like you and me who understand what's going on at Warner Brothers and understand that the DCEU in some shape or another has been a calamity since 2013's Man of Steel. It doesn't mean Man of Steel and BVS and the Snyderverse ain't good movies and ain't a good franchise, but we know what was going on behind the scenes. That's what I mean. A calamity. A calamity that David Zaslav is trying to fix because he is a business manager. As I explained before, he's here because he's a fixer, and by hook or by crook, he's going to fix this studio, and delaying these movies is part of that. Now, could the delay of Shazam, Fury of the Gods being delayed from this year to next year be something to do, as Boris Kitt has theorised, with a financial situation and cost cutting? According to him, he's been told by insiders that Warner Brothers Discovery can't afford to release Shazam, Fury of the Gods and a couple of other movies this year, and that's why they're being postponed and delayed. I don't believe that for a minute. If they felt Shazam, Fury of the Gods could make record-breaking money in its date now, which is 5 days after the Avatar sequel, Avatar Way of the Water, it would still be released. It's not really anything to do with that. But in terms of numbers and finances, if you release Shazam, Fury of the Gods 5 days after the Avatar sequel, they were planning on releasing it on the same day that Emmerich changed it. And Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom was going to release on the same day as the Avatar sequel. I think that James Wan's sequel had more of a chance to compete with that movie, but it's not a wise move, and I don't know why they went in that direction in the first place. So the delay of Shazam, Fury of the Gods, as frustrating as it is to all fans, me included, because I am a fan, it makes sense. Delaying Shazam till next year, next March, is a good idea because there's very little wiggle room. Where could you release it this year? We are now in August. You can't put it out in September. You can't clash it with Black Adam. November's busy. It can't be done. So, instead of putting it out in December, where they would have liked to have attracted audiences in the kind of Christmas release schedule, but they've decided to put it in the former date, before it was delayed, of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So that's one of the reasons. That's the reason Shazam, Fury of the Gods has been delayed, and it's a good reason. So what about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom? Do you believe the studio and James Wan that it's merely been delayed for VFX because he's a perfectionist? As soon as this announcement was made, James Wan or whoever released some artwork from the movie. Timing is everything to keep everyone calm, and so people don't lose interest in a movie. Because the more you change dates and delay movies, the less interested the public will be in these said movies. But of course, DC fans are very loyal and obsessed, as I am as well. And of course, we'll still be there to support these movies, but it's utterly terrible marketing to keep on doing this, but it was a necessity. No, I do not believe that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, let's say that again, I'm getting all tongue-tied, but I don't believe that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom's delay has very much to do with VFX. It's pretty clear that they're scrubbing Amber Heard out of this movie. I believe they're going to recast her and they're going to give her more of a presence in this movie. That's what I think is going to happen, and I think that's one of the reasons, because, you know, Shazam Fury of the Gods is not going to be on in December. It's going to be on, what, 3.5, 4 months later. Well, let's look at Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom from March. Let's count this together so there's no misunderstandings. So April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, that's 8 months, right? I think I've got that right, 7 or 8 months. My maths has never been my strong suit. So basically, we're talking about 7 or 8 months delay. That's a long time. And think about this for a minute. It takes about 2-3 months to shoot a movie, and by the time you do the post-production, it can take up to a year. But there's a lot of stuff already been done for this movie, so they're not starting again and again. But they can make fundamental changes to this movie. Remember what David Zaslav said at the investors' call. They're great movies, but we can make them better. Yes, he intends in making Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom a lot better, and this is why it's been delayed. Now, the next news you should hear is that Mira is being recast, and this is one of the major reasons for the delay. I don't know when that will be announced. That's what people are telling me, and that's what I believe. Now, so basically I've given you justifiable reasons why Shazam Fury of the Gods and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom have been delayed. Valid, reasons. That instead of us losing our shit and listening to people like Boris Kipp, who I love and I think is a great journalist, but I think he's talking utter shit that they can't afford to release Shazam Fury of the Gods. Now, maybe some of those other films that have been delayed are cost-cutting measures. But in terms of Shazam, you can't release it 5 days after Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. This is another situation that David Zaslav has fixed and made better. I always like to finish everyday show on a lighter note, if it's possible. It's not always possible, but today, this is a lighter note. This is a fucking joke, as far as I'm concerned. Secret Batgirl screenings hit the Warner Brothers lot, exclusive by Aaron Crouch and Boris Kitt. The cancelled DC film is getting funeral screenings before footage is put under lock and key. This is fucking hilarious. I mean, I've never known people make such a fuss about a TV pilot, which is basically what it is. And so much is being made of this, and it's because it's got a Hispanic female lead in it. It's political, because everything these days with Hollywood is political. Batgirl won't be flying onto HBO Max screens, but a select group of insiders is getting to see the film during secret screenings on Warner Brothers lot this week. Normally I would be fucking jealous if other people got to see a film. Now, this is going to be interesting to me. Who's going to get to see it? People who work in the industry, journalists? Isn't that a bit dangerous, because then they'll come out and say how it shouldn't have been delayed, or maybe it is being done so journalists can see it, so they can reiterate that the movie is actually a piece of shit, which is also what I've been told. It's not the director's fault or the actress's fault. It's a piece of shit. It's about the budgetary reasons. It should never have been released, for HBO Max. This should have had a huge investment from the very beginning. And that's the problem. And that's not David Zaslav's fault. He's trying to fix this situation. That's Toby Emmerich's fault. But Toby Emmerich's friends in the media have been trying to do some damage control for him and basically put out a lot of propaganda against David Zaslav. Anyway, multiple sources tell The Hollywood Reporter they are said to be for people who worked on the movie, both cast and crew. as well as representatives and executives. Why? Why would you want to watch this? Our source described them as funeral screenings. This is nuts. Honestly, this fucking industry is insane. Held before the film is sent off to an undisclosed afterlife with footage looked after in a vault, either physical or digital. On August the 2nd, Batgirl became the most talked about film in the world. Yeah, because it wouldn't have been talked about if it was released. Well, apart from the fact that it's not very good. When news broke that new Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav had opted to scrap the $90 million DC film in order to take a tax write-down. The CEO of the newly merged company is seeking $3 billion in cost savings. And again, I'll reiterate, this is what happens with every merger, because they spend so much money buying into a company, they have to save money. So what they're doing now is making decisions to cut that $3 billion, but also they're trying to fix the studio, because the studio's a mess. The studio hasn't made any real successful content, very rarely, and very few billion-dollar movies. So the company's been run into the ground, and it's this troubleshooters, fixers, business managers role to make this company viable again. Batgirl was deep in post-production when Warner's cancelled the project, but was still far from complete, with temp visual effects and score. The film had previously held a single test screening, the only time members of the public saw it cut. And those members of the public weren't impressed. One question swirling around Batgirl is whether it should become the next Zack Snyder's Justice League. No, because it's not the same situation. An abandoned film that later sees the light of day. No, because it's not that film. That film had a vision and we saw it had a quality. This film is more of a political aesthetic, and you know what I'm talking about. But Batgirl is different for multiple reasons. Sources note Justice League was not a tax write-down for the studio. It was released in theatres and there was no legal reason an alternate version could not exist down the road. If the studio were to release Batgirl, it would run afoul of rules that allow Warner Brothers Discovery to claim a tax write-down. In other words, now they've taken the tax write-down on it. It is literally illegal and impossible for this film to ever be released. What's more, filmmaker Adil El-Arbi and Bill Al-Fallah say they do not personally have access to any footage, yet because they started to leak stuff and the studio got pissed off. Those sources say it's possible some players connected to the project may have footage on personal drives. I'd be very surprised. In contrast, when Snyder left Justice League in the spring of 2017, he departed the Warner's lot with a laptop containing a rough 4-hour cut of the film. Actually, his footage was a lot longer than that. One he later would complete after a years-long campaign from fans demanding to see his version of the film. Generally, a studio will not get the full tax write-down immediately on a money-losing project, but rather will get a certain percentage right away, and the rest over a period of years. That's because it's unclear how much a project might make or lose over its lifetime as it hits cable and other platforms. Several sources suggested that Warner's might make the drastic move of actually destroying its Batgirl footage as a way to demonstrate to the IRS that there will never be any revenue from the project, and thus it should be entitled to the full write-down immediately. Other sources dispute that notion, noting that there are other projects that still have footage locked away that will never see the light of day. But the difference is to the other footage, they're not taking a tax write-down. I believe they're going to destroy this movie, even if they haven't already, and I think maybe they already have. Such as HBO's first Game of Thrones spin-off pilot, Blood Moon, an hour of television that not even author George R.R. Martin has seen. There is also the possibility that Warner Brothers could down the road decide Batgirl is worth releasing and pay back the government its tax liability. That is an impossibility. It's not going to happen. They see no viability in this movie. Leslie Grace starred as Barbara Gordon Batgirl in the film, which was supposed to be one of several modestly budgeted DC projects made directly for HBO Max as part of a former Warner Media CEO Jason Kilar's push to juice the streaming service. Zaslav, who took the reins of the combined company in April, has reversed that strategy and is pushing Warner's back to a focus on theatrical first. That is the right decision. What have we learned from David Zaslav's decisions to reverse Kilar's focus on HBO Max and streaming? That there really isn't much profit to be made from streaming, and the industry and the media gave us a very false impression of that. We are now getting choices in streaming with advertising streamers and having the same kind of streaming service without ads. I'll tell you what the future is. Everything will be ad-based and there'll be no choice. It'll be like broadcast network television with ads in between movies at the beginning and the end and different content, but in the middle as well. There's a lot of new streaming services doing this already because there's quadruple the profit to be made through sponsors and ads on streaming services, and they're not making much money, and now they're realizing this. They invested billions in content. Netflix have done it, Amazon have done it with Lord of the Rings of Power. That's going to lose a hell of a lot of money. They're going to learn the hard way. While Batgirl has nabbed the most attention for being killed, it wasn't the only film that fell victim to Zaslav's tax write-down strategy. Scoob, that nobody cares about, Holiday Haunt, another nearly completed film that was cancelled the same day as Batgirl. Damn notifications, as Batgirl quietly had its own funeral screening on the Warner's lot last week. That's just hilarious. A funeral screening for a movie. I have heard it all. This is absolutely ridiculous. As we already know, I certainly do, being involved in this industry and spending 6 months in Hollywood, that this industry is insane. It's run in an insane way. And to have a funeral graveyard viewing, a morning session for an average TV pilot, aka Batgirl, is the biggest fucking joke ever. And all this could have been avoided. Batgirl is one of the top characters and titles in DC Comics. She is beloved. She deserves a $200 million budget, and being directed by someone like Matt Reeves or someone similar to Matt Reeves, right? That's what Batgirl deserves. Being seen in the movie theatre and it being given, you know, the blockbuster treatment. That's what Batgirl deserves. And if you adapt that character properly in live action, it's something special and you'll make a hell of a lot of fucking money. But no. Toby Emmerich and Walter Hamada decided, here's 70 million and Jason Kilar, and go on HBO Max to get us some subs. It was going to be a cheap TV pilot, nothing more and nothing less. But hey, we've got 15 minutes of Michael Keaton. That should get the suckers in. This should sucker the mugs, right? And ultimately, test audiences said no. They said this is nothing to do with just one showing, or it's not polished yet. It's not about that. This movie is simply not good enough to be transferred over to the theatrical system, which is what Zaslav originally wanted. It's what he did with Blue Beetle. So Zaslav wants to focus on the theatrical system. And as I said earlier, that is the right decision. Just got some breaking news for you. It won't be breaking by the time you see it. This is for Arrowverse fans. Stargirl lead actor Brett Basinger says there are talks for a little Arrowverse crossover. Very interesting. I'll try and get more of that for you in the next video. And of course, if we don't discuss it on the next video because there's something bigger to discuss, follow me on Twitter @MoviesTVMad. And I will keep you updated. I have just retweeted an article. This has been Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And I'll see you for Friday's show. Until we see each other again, goodbye. Au revoir. Auf Wiedersehen.